All right. Here we go. Oh, giving it away already. Went too fast. Anyway, a year ago, it was really, really exciting times, and everybody sort of thought of 2007 as the year of ICOs. And I say it was actually the year of Rodolfo. Right, look at this guy. There's all the excitement of Bitcoin. And what happened, he really finally arrived. You know, all the people who've been telling about Bitcoin for all of those years, they were all wrong. You know, he was right, vindicated. He finally had respect. You know, all of the money he collected for the show was now worth 4 times as much as it was when he got it. So things were going great for Rodolfo. But really what made it for him is he finally became an internet meme. Everybody know what a meme is, right? Not funny. Okay. Anyway, look at you. This is great. But this is how exciting everything was last year. Well, a lot of people say, well, why are you still so excited about Bitcoin? So let me tell you a little bit about myself here quickly. So last time I was in Santiago was about 20 years ago. I was working for this company putting these things in. Everybody recognize those DirecTV dishes? Very exciting times. We were just launching a brand new business, and it has a lot of the same kind of characteristics. Anytime you're launching a new business, it's everybody's full throttle. Everybody's working their tails off. All the entrepreneurs are trying to figure out what the best angle is. So some of the businesses I've been in have been a lot of bleeding edge businesses. Satellite television in the early days with DirecTV. Then I got into the internet, building internet websites and so forth. And that led me into mobile. So I was one of the first BlackBerry partners in the Western United States and one of the largest that was selling those gadgets. And the promise then was really that we'd be able to build all kinds of cool mobile apps. And you know, in the early days, it was almost impossible. Like by about 2007, I'd been in the mobile business for about 8 years, and it had been brutal. I mean, we had built all sorts of applications that would freeze up. We didn't have the bandwidth. The devices didn't have the battery life. They didn't have the compute power on these little handheld devices. You could never build a mobile app like Uber or Lime, those little scooters you see running around here. You could never build a location-aware app like that in 2007 when I left the business. So I remembered that because when I saw those apps come, I'm like, wow, I got out too early. Well, that's kind of the way I feel about crypto right now. Like crypto is at the point where the networks are still kind of slow, confirmation times are getting faster, but still not quite there. We don't have the scalability of these big systems, but it's all coming. Think about all the investment that's going in to these companies, and that's really what's going to make things get super exciting. So why am I still excited about crypto and blockchain technology? Because we're still in the early days, and if you don't believe that, you still just have to look back at the history. Look back at the early days of the internet, look at the early days of mobile. Any new technology that comes around takes time to really get adopted. Everybody thinks it's an overnight success, but it never works that way. So what problem does cryptocurrency really solve? Back in 1944, there was a pretty major problem that we had. And I think it was referenced in a couple of other presentations. But the problem we had is we had printed more paper than the gold that we had to back it up. And so in Bretton Woods, 44, I think, countries came together with representatives to try to figure out how to solve this problem. And that's when we went away from the gold standard, right? So what does that do? You then have the ability for governments to devalue the currency of their people, right? And that continues to be a problem today. Settlement tracking of value over distances. If you saw the gentleman's presentation yesterday about the big ship with all the gold that sank, trying to move it to settle from one country to another, and the ship sank. Well, that's it still becomes a problem today. If you've ever had to move money from a bank to an international bank from one country to another, and you've had to do that consistently, you know how painful that can really be. I think about these Lime scooters, if you've seen them running around town here. We have the same service in Los Angeles. And there's a lot of people that don't like these. They clutter the sidewalks up. They are, there's people running on the sidewalks. They think of it as a public safety hazard. But if you think about this, I used my app on my phone to go up and unlock this device here in Santiago, Chile. It's charging my credit card back in the US, and the company's getting that money. If you think about the complexity of what has to happen for the local people here to get paid for that service that they provided with that scooter through those banks, it's really complicated. Well, that's why I'm still excited about cryptocurrency, because these are the kinds of complicated systems that we're going to be fixing. Because we have now utility tokens. We have cryptocurrencies and equity tokens. And I think this is just the beginning of the categories that we'll see as we emerge. Utility token you think of as you go to a fair and you want to get on the rides. And you need to go up, give them cash, they give you tickets, you walk to that ride, and the only way you get on that ride is with those tickets. So you can't get on any other way. You can't hand them cash at the ride and get on. So if you think about that example now of the Lime scooter, think about it as, wow, what if they had their own token and that was the only way to ride those scooters? One thing I learned in my days at GoCoin, so GoCoin's a payment processor. We were one of the early ones along with Coinbase and BitPay, and we became the #2 payment processor in the world for cryptos. One of the things that we learned was if people really want the service bad enough and you tell them crypto is the way you're going to get it and there's no other way, they will find a way to get crypto and they will use it. So if you get a service such as Lime or Uber or something that people really want to use and you have a token that underlies it and require them to use it, they will. I absolutely know that. Cryptocurrencies are a little bit different. Cryptocurrencies are really sort of storage of value and money, but money that you can send around the internet, not just money that is in your wallet or that you can't send or transfer. Equity tokens are really just a fractionalized share of an equity or ownership in some other entity. So we'll see a lot of really interesting things around equity tokens here in the next couple years or so. But where it really comes to a problem is when you get into the regulations. And nothing's more exciting than talking about regulations. But we have a very fundamental problem still. We don't have clarity when it comes to how these things will be treated. In fact, just last week, there was a ruling finally that an airdrop doesn't constitute a security. So the SEC was prosecuting a case against an ICO, and what they found was if there's no actual risk of loss, then you can't say that it was actually a security. So by doing an airdrop where somebody just receives a token into their wallet, and that was a big victory for our industry because for the first time we got a ruling, actually case law, that states that these are not against the law. So a couple of my favorite blunders from CEOs. And if you read the first one here, there's no reason anyone would have a computer in their home. This was said by Ken Olsen of Digital Equipment Corporation, which of course is no longer here, and this is one of the reasons, because they lacked the vision. Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft a couple years back, Google's not a real company, it's just a house of cards. Blockbuster, Netflix isn't even on the radar in terms of competition. So the final one here is Bitcoin's not a real thing, it's a fraud. Jamie Dimon, of course, of JP Morgan. So what do all of these have in common? What's the common thread through these comments from these CEOs? And the answer is they all are protecting their turf. They don't want competitors to come in with something that's going to disrupt them. And so therefore, they're going to say, no, these are not good things, not good innovations. And if you look at any innovation, there's people that fear change. Nobody likes change, right? If you look at any new technology as it comes about, the telegraph, for example, in the early days, the telegraph was used to send signals from New York to Los Angeles of the results of a horse race. Is it cheating? Yeah, you could say it's cheating because you could then place a bet because the systems that were the predecessors weren't fast enough to get the information of who had won the race out to California. So people that would get these telegrams in would then place their bets and they were winning. But then they figured that out. Well, what became the telegraph then became the telephone, which becomes the cell phone. So it's not the technology that we have to worry about. The technology is going to keep coming and keep coming. It's relentless. Technology doesn't stop. If you don't believe me, look at those scooters out there. Because what they did is they didn't ask permission. They just started putting these things on the streets and people started going, hey, what's this? This is cool. You see a couple people running around town on these scooters like, wow, that's really cool, I want to try that, right? But they didn't ask permission. They just went in. And that's, I think, a lesson for our industry, is we have to think about things in a responsible way, but also not be so reluctant to push the envelope. So here's the state of politics in the US. This was a couple months ago. We should prohibit US persons from buying or mining cryptocurrencies. This is one of the more tame things that was said by Brad Sherman, who's the senior Democrat on the House Financial Services Committee, right? And the response was, well, just because Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies have been used for nefarious acts, so have airplanes, computers, cash, automobiles, you name it. Other things, other technologies are used to do bad things. So we shouldn't just stomp out the technology just because it's bad. So, or assuming that it's bad. So recently I was invited to speak at an FBI event, which is held, they call it the National Cyber Investigative Joint Task Force. And I know that's a lot, but it's about 14 different countries represented. They're top investigators and enforcement people from around the world. And it was fascinating to watch and listen to all of the things that these people, the top investigators in the world, think about cryptocurrencies. And for the most part, they like them, because in many ways, it makes it more simple for them to track the cash, track the flow. Cash is very hard to realize. Is there's certain elements to this that are very tough for them to track. But what came as a big surprise to me during this and listening to them is that they really are only after really bad actors. So they're really not after the entrepreneur who's trying to do the right thing, who's not trying to defraud people. So, you know, to me, that was a really great signal. They're not really looking to stomp on the innovations that are going. So a little bit about the company I work with, Block. And Block, we talk about in two ways. We have one side of the business where we're working with the Crypto 50 and the Fortune 50 large enterprises. And then on the other side, we have what's called Block Labs, which is the innovative side. Think of it as inspired by Bell Labs when it came to innovations around telecommunications. So some of the projects that we look for are in the strategic leadership area, but really most of the projects in Block Labs are centered around innovations in tokens and building out these token economies that I was discussing. So I'll give a couple of examples of where I see token economies that can be very productive. Well, I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. I also want to talk a little bit about Metronome, which is one of the projects that we launched under Block Labs. And the idea here is that Metronome acts as a central bank, an autonomous central bank for cryptocurrencies. The idea is that it's a money supply that's consistent and predictable, and that you can always trade against this 24 hours a day against a pair of Metronome versus Ethereum. All right, that's an autonomous contract that's out there, released to the wild, that can never be changed. And so it's really designed by Jeff Garzik to be a system that will continue to last way beyond the creators. So anyway, check this out, metronome.io. It's a very interesting read. Anybody that wants to take a deep dive into development of a new cryptocurrency, it's a great think piece. Wax is a project that I like when it comes to token economies, because what they've done is built this marketplace for what they call skins. Skins are, for example, you want a special sword that you have that your competitor in a game doesn't have, or a special armor. Well, they've now tokenized these so that they can't be counterfeited. One of the problems that they have in the gaming industry is a game developer will just decide, hey, we've gotten to the end of our quarter, we're not going to make our numbers. Let's just take this really cool piece of armor and we're going to make a bunch of them and sell them. So with the platform Wax, they're now going to prevent that kind of, not counterfeiting, but sort of diluting again the people that are already the holders. And anyway, it's a cool project, and also one that I think really demonstrates how these tokens can really protect users and consumers in a very unique way. A project that was launched by a company, ICOX Innovations, and this is a Kodak One project. This is a new platform and marketplace for creators. People that are creating content, usually photography, of course, and the platform will allow them to now get paid much faster than they used to. So one of the problems they have in that industry is that of licensing. So somebody creates their photography, they've developed it, they then publish it, and then it goes all over the internet, and you really don't know where it goes. Because anybody can do anything from a screen capture to different ways, and then the creator of that content has a really hard time getting paid. So this platform now will enable the content creator, for example, who comes to a professional athletic event, to be able to take their photography and load it up to the platform and then be paid with the Kodak token. So another one where you see that as more and more people start to adopt this, that it will get a cycle of use. And that's really what you're looking for in these token economies, is to create a cycle of use. One final project I want to discuss here, another one that comes under Block Labs, is AUX, the AUX token. The idea here is before a token is listed on an exchange, how do we know what it's worth? This platform will give the ability to create an auction. And it could be a descending price auction. It could be an ascending price auction. It could be a Dutch auction. All of these different formats, they'll enable any digital asset to be auctioned off. And that really opens itself up to price discovery. So the idea is that you have to submit the tokens to the platform, to the smart contracts, and they're locked up and held until that auction ends. At the end of the auction, all the assets will be distributed to the various places where they belong. So I believe I'm running a little bit low on time. So thank you very much. Contact information if anybody wants to reach me. And
great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Very nice talk. Great. Wonderful.